So we're just moving into the session now, just before teas and coffees. I realise that time is tight. We've got 4 panel members here. I'll stick within the 25 minutes allotted that we've got with this, because I think it's important that you all understand what your options are as clients and as service providers. And I know that sort of since the 1990s, and we had voluntary competitive tendering and compulsory competitive tendering, and it opened up the doors to the private sector in a new way in which to engage with public sector colleagues in the delivery of the highways function. Well, the one thing that's been constant since then is that whilst there's been a dearth of different models for service delivery, it's been a good mix of public and private sector. And then we've seen new things emerge, and one of the more recent things to emerge, I say recent, you know, I've got one of the Teckels sat over on my right here that's 11 years old, but others which are just a few years old. But in terms of the Teckels exemption, it's called the Teckels model, it's about a company which is wholly owned by the public sector, so i.e. the local authority owns a company. And when I'm asked to explain it, I always say it's about the commercialisation of your DLO, as an example, so that we drive new performance targets and set new benchmarks, and we like to make sure that we are comparable in terms of service provision with the private sector. So that's what I think that the Teckels is trying to get at. But I'm going to turn first of all to just Dominic, just to say, Dominic, you're the one who's 11 years old in terms of being a Teckels model. So could you set the scene by describing, you know, what being a Teckels company means to you, please?
Thanks, Martin. And to put it into some context, as Martin said, Cormac's 11 years old. We're 120 million per annum company. We employ about 1,000 people. We provide integrated highway services, environmental services, have a consultancy and a civil engineering contracting business, and a quarry and an asphalt plant. So what Teckels means to me is very much being a hybrid. My role is about being a public servant, but at the same time a business leader and a company director. And I think that hybrid role really sums up what Teckels means to me. Really focused on our mission as a company to work together to improve the lives of people in Cornwall. Very much collaboration ethos, but also the creation of the social value, as well as real alignment with the priorities and the outcomes that our shareholder and owner, Cornwall Council, require. I think it takes that further to really align to our business objectives in terms of creating value for our communities through our term services, designing and building infrastructure for economic growth in Cornwall, to provide homes, jobs and sustainable communities, and then growing our regional business. So that's our external business, the work we do for clients and commissioners other than Cornwall Council, which is growing to around 30% of our revenue this year. I think I can also put into context the transition from DSO into an arm's length company, really, and how that's changed things. I think being more independent and perhaps not working under the direct management of the council is a key area. It gives us the ability to have a slightly different risk appetite. It gives us the ability to not be constrained by standing orders. That's not to say there isn't an element of control that the council have through us as a Teckels company, but that certainly creates flexibility for us. And I think flexibility is probably the final point, whether that's the flexibility around our terms of employment, enabling us to pay salaries that are aligned to market as opposed to salaries that are defined by a local government job evaluation scheme, or whether it be the commercial and contractual flexibility that we can provide, absolutely not constrained by our contracts or our commercial agreements. It's about creation of value for our parent and our owner.
Brilliant, thanks somebody. And rather than me asking, you know, what do you feel more like? Do you feel more like a public sector focused organisation or a private sector organisation, because it's not the public good, private bad, nothing of that nature. But you use the word hybrid, Dominic, in terms of a descriptor on the model. Matthew, just follow up on that for us, please, in terms of, is that where you feel you are? Matthew, incidentally, I should have explained, is the chairman of VIA EM, so another substantial Teckels that exists within the UK, and that's why Matthew has very kindly joined us today.
Yeah, thank you, Martin, and good afternoon to everybody. I was reflecting back, actually, Martin, when we produced that route to procurement toolkit for HMET, and we added in the Teckels option. And I suppose if you remember the toolkit and that sort of dial of risk, the Teckels sort of sits halfway between DLO and outsource. So I just see it as an alternative in terms of a delivery model that doesn't go to full outsource but isn't a DLO. So it sort of fits in that space in between. So, the key benefit, and I think Dominic's already picked up on these issues, is that it can operate commercially. So it becomes an arm's length business where you have much more freedoms and flexibilities. And at a time when local authorities are trying to resource by recruiting, Teckels can actually move away from those terms and conditions and compete with the market. So we don't necessarily have some of the problems that perhaps other organisations have to do in that space. And I think that freedom and flexibility is important, but also, taking that risk consideration and being able to operate commercially is important, but also remember that all the profits come back into the authority. So, that is a real crucial difference between the private sector and the DLO, is that all the money generated does come back into the authority. And I think the point about social value is really important, because everything we do is delivered by local labour force in the authority. And when we talked about social value this morning, it's all about supporting local communities in whatever way we can, and having that workforce in the vicinity really helps drive that forward.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Matthew. And just to move on to they're all related topics. It's all about the Teckels company. Jamie, I'd like to ask you, in terms, I know you've established the Teckels Advisory Group, which is the four of your organisations coming together to share knowledge and experience. Tell us, what are you getting from that, Jamie?
Well, it's the sharing of knowledge and best practice in an unprecedented level in comparison to the private sector. You couldn't imagine private sector organisations sharing information in terms of rates and successes and failures. So you can learn from mistakes as well as successes. And the number of groups that we've set up, the subgroups that we've set up, are helping our workforce and the leaders within our businesses achieve quicker than what they would do if they were just acting on their own. Yeah,
but brilliant, Jamie, and that's what I was hoping the response might be. And I'm just got to cheekily ask Dominic to follow up on that and say, has it been like being the only son in a family for 10, and now all of a sudden you've found your three brothers and you're able to share these? What's it been like out in the wilderness, and is this better now with TAG?
Absolutely. So in terms of value creation for my business, we've got the obvious benefits of sharing business metrics. We've done a big piece around HR and people stats already. That'll go further now to health and safety, into commercial, into social value. So really looking at how we're doing things across the four organisations and identifying opportunities for further improvement. I think I've always struggled with the cost and the payback on investment and R&D as a single term maintenance contract. We've now got an opportunity to create economies of scale across 4 TMCs to get greater payback on investment opportunities and R&D type activities. So I think that certainly opens the doors for us becoming more innovative through those economies. I think also the creation of subgroups now. So this is about creating a network across our organisations within TAG, a network of specialists basically. I think that will create the next layer of detail and really aim to be able to unlock opportunity, again, share innovations across experts in the 4 organisations to help us all benefit.
Yeah, but brilliant. Thanks, Tony. Simon, I'd like to come on to you now. Now, Simon heads up the laboratory in Norfolk. He's very kindly agreed to step in on behalf of Jason Glasspool, who's the Ops Director there for Norse, and has very kindly agreed to come along because this conference, indeed, one of its key areas of focus is around carbon, and there would be no one better in my book to answer a question around how successful have you been in this model, Simon, of being able to introduce more carbon-friendly materials into your network?
Quite in a privileged position. We're in Teckels, but our roles have remained client roles.
Yeah.
So we are contingent workers, so I have the same role that I did 5 years ago when I was at part of Norfolk. So I take the risk. We talked about, Paul talked about it earlier on, sharing risk. We move new innovation forward, but our network is built over hundreds of years. So, and most of you probably know Norfolk has got no mountains, no hills, no natural hard rock or anything like that. It's flat as a pancake. So anything we bring into Norfolk comes from Norway, Scotland or the Midlands by train. So CO2 and saving CO2 starts with the network we have already. The network we've got built, the asset has been valued at £19 billion. That money sits there, so we might as well use it and reuse it. So we use it, we do in situ stabilisation, we do, and we just tried some CO2-friendly cements. We do rejuvenators for our network as well, things like that. It's quite easy to do in the role that we sit in. It's not a problem, and I'd like to think we're approachable as well. Norfolk's always been known for trying things, so once you try things, we can then bring the CO2 values into it. But I want to use what's in the ground already. I don't want to start bringing more natural materials in from far. So I'd rather bring a tanker of cement, CO2-friendly cement, than I would bring 400 trucks of Type 1. Because everything I dig out of the ground, I've got to put somewhere else. So it's not 400 trucks of Type 1 just coming into Norfolk, it's 400 trucks of material out of the carriageway, got to go to a dump that we haven't got. So there's a number of, it's not a problem. It's just finding them, I think, sometimes. We touched on what Rory had brought forward. We had Paul was talking about the data collection. We had that 5, 6, 7 years ago on our kit. We've moved that forward, and that's all saves us money and therefore CO2.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Simon. Jamie, do you feel you've got freedoms to innovate, in the materials world, within the arrangements that we've got there with NY Highways?
Yeah, the setup's slightly different between all the Teckels in terms of who's got responsibility for selecting network treatment. So NY Highways, that we're not in the position that we select the treatments. That's a council-led element. But I think that'll change, and that's certainly been the journey of the older Teckels. My big brothers here certainly have went through the pain of that, and there's a lot of advantages that can be seen in their journey. So to answer your question, NY Highways doesn't have the freedom in terms of innovation and selecting treatments, but I think it'll have it in the future.
Excellent. But one of the things, I said the key focus of the conference, of course, it's around collaboration, it's around carbon as well. Dominic, I think you've got some recent experience of, carbonising your fleet. How quick you got to do it then?
Yeah, I hope you wouldn't ask the question about the timescale. It's realistic for us, but it's really got its challenges. So our commitment 3 years ago was to have a 100% ULEV fleet by 2030 to tie in with Cornwall Council's climate emergency and its target to be carbon neutral by 2030. Our strategy was to do that in 3 ways. So electrification of our smaller fleet and vans, innovative biomethane clean energy solution to our 3.5 tonne and 5 tonne tippers, and then alternative fuel strategy for the heavies. I think the biomethane project has been a great example of innovation. So we're partway through a pilot now with our partners and have installed 3 sealed slurry lagoons on 3 Cornish dairy farms. That's been used to capture methane from the organic matter from the dairy farms and then to convert that into biomethane that is fueling the alternative fuel vehicles. We've currently got 12 vehicles on the fleet, and our vision is that that's scalable and will become our solution to the mid-range. Timescales are absolutely challenging. Martin, you're right. I describe it as a triangle of pressures and issues that we've got. The first point of the triangle is the supply chain. And the delays, the time the automotive industry is taking to deliver things. Our charging and our refueling infrastructure is a huge challenge to us, particularly in a rural county like Cornwall. And then thirdly, the financial challenges around not only the capex, but also the operating costs of an alternative fuel fleet.
So, Dominic, can I read into that or summarise it by saying those authorities have signed up to a pledge of 2030. There's no way that they're going to be able to decarbonise the fleet by that. Well, no way with reasonable cost being able to decarbonise fleet. Is that where we are?
Absolutely, and the challenges in the supply chain equally.
Yeah, so, cost does have to come into it, doesn't it? Just like it is with HS2 now. So wherever cost bites, I'm afraid, it does tend to play its part. So it's interesting about the commitments that we've made and how we're now starting to realise that, do you know what, it was easy to say back in 2019 or 2017, and I made that commitment, and now I'm staring reality in the face and looking at my clock clicking down, and the market's not got to a space where I thought it would have got by now. So that's really key for us, I think. In terms of the model and innovation, Matthew, do you think the model lends itself to innovation beyond materials and the like? Is it an easy model in which to innovate?
I think so. I think clearly innovation is essential to any business to drive success. But I think the Teckels have the credentials to make that investment. They've got the ability to hold money for research and development through the profit-making regime, taking risk and having the leadership and market intelligence you need to look at innovation. So I think in that space of being able to operate more commercially, they're able to invest in research and development. And on the span of responsibilities, there's enormous scope. So we just touched on fleet, but certainly within Nottinghamshire, we have traffic signals, we have road safety, we have a whole range of those highway services. And perhaps I just sort of mention one in particular. I mean, we're very fortunate that we still, unlike many authorities, have great in-house capability around traffic signal design and technology. So we were recently doing a resurfacing scheme on the A38 near Mansfield, and it was at a junction where there were 38 induction loops. And because of the knowledge of our traffic signal engineers, they said rather than taking them all out and putting them all again, why don't we do this by remote systems using a system called Smart Micro. So instead of taking out all the induction loops, well, they came out as part of the resurfacing, but having to replace them, we were able not to have to put them in and saved an awful lot of money. Now, I think, because we had that in-house capability, we were able to do that ourselves and not delay the scheme and getting on with it.
Yeah, so no negatives then in the world of innovation for us in this model, which is fantastic. The one question I'd like you all to answer, and I'll start with Jamie, the far end there. I'm going to say the one thing that you feel that you are empowered to do through this model that you otherwise would not be empowered to do under other traditional arrangement types.
Yeah, so the client contractor relationship is always one that's each party's a bit guarded, Whereas in a Teckels, that goes out the window because you're working as one team to deliver a service for the local authority, and profit turns into efficiencies. So you're looking for efficiencies and not profit. So commercially aggressive behaviour and opportunistic practices, which take up a lot of time, go out the window. So you can have truly open and honest conversations about how you improve the service delivery. So I think that's the one key difference.
Yeah, perfect, Jamie, absolutely. Matthew?
Yeah, this might sound counterintuitive, but it's about maintaining that public sector ethos while still operating commercially. So all the people that work for VIA live in Nottinghamshire. They very much affect their own community, and they still feel part of that. So it helps sort of in terms of that local service delivery. But I also think what we're also able to do is to provide that end-to-end delivery as well. So many highways departments have been fragmented, and that creates the silos, whereas in VIA now we can do that cradle-to-grave service, which is a really good place to deliver good outcomes.
Yeah, perfect. Simon, your perspective?
It's the contingent worker role. Our duties, although we're employed by NORS, we've got NCC duties, so we're defined duties by the client as such, so we carry out duties on their behalf. So my day job is working for Norfolk County Council, although I'm paid by NORS.
So it sounds like a nice balance of an arrangement, doesn't it? And finally, from Grandad Teckels.
Thanks. I'm back to my hybrid role here, being empowered to do the right thing in the hybrid role of public servant and business leader, and that's really to maximise the value that the company can create for Cornwall Council, our owner.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much in that, every single one of you. I hope that we've got across to the audience what this Teckels arrangement is all about. I purposely skipped on a whole load of questions here, and forgive me for not sticking to script. Gentlemen, you can beat me up afterwards for going off-piste and different places with the questions. But I wanted to make sure that we gave a little bit of an opportunity to colleagues in the audience who have heard of this Teckels arrangement, to ask any questions. You've got, 4 of the UK's leading experts now in the world of the Teckels arrangement sat here in front of you. Have any questions that you might want to ask, please?
Martin.
Sean.
Thanks. Sean Rooney, Oxfordshire. We've got 4 leading experts. Why are there only 4? What do you think the barriers are that there are not more Teckels? And I know there's not just 4, but why no more?
It's a good question, and I think it's a question to put back to the audience as well, actually. And I think a lot of authorities. We heard about what Andy said about bringing things back in-house, and I think there are certain things that probably lend themselves to in-house delivery where there's a lot of risk. And there's been some issues in the commercial sector with companies going bust delivering frontline services. I think there's worry about cost and quality of service delivery. So, for me, it seems a no-brainer. But, for those of you that have still got DLOs, I would encourage you to look at this model because it would help make your DLOs more cost-effective and efficient, but still delivering that local service. So, I think I throw it back, it's up to the authorities to think about what's right for them, and there's not a panacea in here, but it's certainly, I think, a very effective model.
Simon.
To that, Norse have got 44 JVs with other local authorities, so although we're one company, there are 44 companies under that head and with other local authorities where the districts, North South West is with Devon. There's North South East, there's North Midway. There's a number of JVs North are in Teckels arrangements.
Okay, so smashing. I hope that sort of addresses it, Sean. No panacea. There's, there is no such thing in this instance for sure as the one thing suits all parties the same. You call local government, you call local government for a reason, that you are all built slightly differently. Some are more ready to move to this model than others, and others have got different aspirations. But will it grow? I suspect it will, is the truth. I suspect we'll see more Teckels in the future. And that's why we wanted to come in and share with everyone here in the audience today what they were about. Dominic, you got a question?
Thanks. Dominic Brown from Highways Magazine. I was interested in the point Matthew made about the skills and the jobs market. Do you know what percentage of your highway service is delivered through agency workers in these Teckels? And on the subject of barriers, I imagine capitalisation is quite a barrier. Do you have an idea of how much it costs to set up a Teckels?
I'll touch on the labour question. I think the point I made about the difference between being a DLO and a Teckels is an ability to have a market pay policy within the business. We could never do that as a DLO. And that's great for me because it's helping me grow my business. I wouldn't be able to grow my business, my people, my employees if I was still operating under a council job evaluation process. Very, very low numbers of agency in the organisation, and quite a high degree of self-delivery really, while we benefit from the local micro and SME supply chain in Cornwall as well as some larger national agreements. We're self-delivering a good proportion of our services.
I should have actually asked Andrew Mackay, who sat down on this table in front of us here, to answer the question about the cost, because I've done some analysis for a client in terms of what we suspect the predicted costs are for establishing a Teckels type arrangement. I think it was in the order of about £2 million as your base. So without buying your vehicles so all the other ancillary things you've got to do could amount to, you pick the number out the air, 15 million quid when you bought all your gritters and you've got to buy in your offices and your depot and your salt storage but you think what does it cost an authority, to go out and procure its service to bring the private sector in? So maybe that order of additional cost up to about 2 million is probably there or thereabouts, Dominic. But each authority would have to undertake its own assessment, in my opinion. Jamie.
So one of the huge benefits of setting up a Teckels is you've got the freedom, as Dominic mentioned, to deal with your staff and operatives and increase their capabilities to increase your internal delivery, which then provides greater efficiency because you don't have the profit expenditure to worry about. So NY Highways is now 3 years old, so the capabilities that we have are quite small in comparison to the other Teckels, but you're growing that, you're getting more engagement in your workforce. They see that you're investing within them, and you have the opportunity to have lots of apprentices and build up and address the ageing workforce issue that you've got, and develop social progress as well within that. So it's a good model to deal with a lot of the problems that you have within a DLO organisation, which we all know about.
Yeah, no, excellent. And I'm afraid that sort of brings us to the end of this session purely because of time. But don't let it stop you asking these good people questions now when we go up for coffee or over dinner tonight or in the bar or wherever. If there are things you'd like to know, these individuals have probably got many of the answers for you. So I would just like you to, before I ask you to join me in thanking these good people, back down here in 30 minutes time from now. So whatever, anyone got time on them? So whatever the time is now, add 30 minutes onto it. 4:30 then please, back down here. So if you'd all like to join me please in thanking our superb panellists on this session, thank you very much.